So it really started, we had experienced a medical emergency with myself, and so with that I ended up having to go to Boston to have emergency surgery, and people just came around us and took care of us, and that looked like our friends, our family, it looked like church family, just really taking care of my kids back here, but also we had people that flew up and sat with my family while I was in surgery and things like that. And so coming out of that, we were really looking for ways to be community to maybe people that didn't have one. And so my husband saw a documentary that featured a place in Portland, Oregon, actually, that was serving under a bridge, and shared that with me. And from that, I was just really moved by what we saw and watching the interactions of people and the relationships that were being built. My friend had been there doing some mission work and had mentioned it, so we started looking around Tulsa to see if there was anything like that already existed, and there wasn't. And so we started asking, like, could we create that? And at first we got really a lot of doors closed in our face, and we're told that it was dangerous work for females and that there just wasn't that need. And so it was really like heartbroken, honestly. Like, we spent the next year, my family just would kind of go out, and sometimes we'd have sack lunches, sometimes we would have socks or blankets, and about once a month we'd just go out downtown and just talk to people. And learn and listen and sit with people. And so then a year later, a whole year later, my oldest, who is now in his 20s, was turning 8. And we asked what he wanted to do for his birthday, and he said he didn't want to party. He wanted to go out and meet people and take his friends and do that. I was really hesitant as a mom. I was like, are you sure you don't want to do Star Wars? Because I was afraid no other parents would let their 7 and 8-year-olds come out downtown to do that with us. But I had a friend that encouraged listening to his ideas. And so I did, and all of those little boys came, and we went downtown and they handed out meals. And I thought it was really interesting because they were offering a sack lunch to somebody that was in a business suit coming out of their office, the same as somebody who might not have anything. And they just had a different lens for people, and they just wanted to serve. And so it was a really beautiful time. And then out of that, we were in charge of a group at our church. And so we just repeated that same thing. And coming out of it, there were people that were interested in doing this more often, and they had said that. And so we really created an initial team, like a core group, and spent the next 2 months just meeting and preparing and kind of figuring out what we wanted to do. I knew that we didn't want to just walk around randomly. I wanted a place where people could know to come and know together, and we would be able to offer a multitude of resources, not just a meal, and really dive into relationships and community. And so we met for 2 months, that core team, and then started in September of 2013 with our City Tulsa program. And it's just been really beautiful and crazy since then. That first night we had about 30 volunteers and 30 guests, so we were like 1-to-1 ratio. Now we serve around 300 to 350 people every week, and have anywhere from probably around 75 to 100 volunteers that come out. So we're mobilizing around 5,000 people a year under that bridge, serving our neighbors experiencing homelessness. City Lights, when we first started, we were just a group of people serving, and then kind of grew into a nonprofit in 2015, and we saw that we needed to be able to take donations in a different way, and that it was growing, and we needed to grow with it. And so we made some changes, but the most impactful work is always centered around people. Everything we do, whether it's walking with somebody through their struggles, helping them into housing, or even just like on the other side of that, when we get to see a volunteer come out that doesn't know how to interact with somebody, and they grow in relationship and get to know somebody in a different way, I think that that's really impactful too, when it challenges some of those stigmas and is able to show people as being people, just a regular human being that has struggles. And so I think proximity to people matters. And so when we're able to put people that are different from each other together and watch the beautiful pieces that come out of that, I think that's really rewarding. But man, we've done impactful work. I've watched our team walk with people who have really, really struggled and come into housing and stabilize and, really then turn around and get back in their own ways. That's always really impactful. I think I've watched our team walk end of life with people that don't have a family, don't have any kind of support system, and so they're there, from the time we meet them until the time that person passes, and that person will pass away knowing that they were known and loved and cared for, and had that team not been there, maybe they might not have known them. And that's some really impactful work too. And then just changing the face of homelessness, where we can share these incredible stories about people that are full of grit and perseverance and are really different than what a lot of times people perceive them. When we can move things on that, I think it's really impactful and it makes our community stronger. So there's so many good pieces of work that we've been able to be a part of, but it's all centered around relationships with people. I mean, I think there's lots of stigmas that people pick up on, or are, a lot of times we learn them very little from things we've heard or seen and things like that. And so I think some of the ones that we see a lot of times is that people are being bused in from other cities. I think that's one of the ones that we hear probably most commonly. And so we do a point time count every year in January, and that's a question that we ask in that is like, where did you first become homeless? And so for us, 75% of people became homeless in Tulsa, meaning that they had a stable place to live here prior to that homelessness, and then lost that. Whatever happened, whatever system failed, they ended up becoming homeless here. And so I think it shifts the conversation, right? Because if we are just thinking that somebody else is being bussed in, then we can blame those problems on somebody else. But if we look at what the actual data says, that people are actually here, living here, one of our neighbors here, and they become homeless here, then we have to look at what systems failed them here in our own city and where we need to implement new things. So that's a big one. I think we get a lot of stuff about, all homeless people want to be this way, that they want to live this, they don't want anything better. And I can say in my 12 years in this work, that has not been something that I've seen to be true. I've maybe had 2 or 3 people that say they don't want help, and usually that is a defense mechanism because they have been offered help before and it has not worked out, and they've lost a lot of hope and a lot of trust in that, or somebody will tell them, I'm going to do this for you, and then they don't. And so what I found is in those people that have come at me with that, I don't want help, the more consistent I am and the more relational I am, that usually turns over and they actually do want help and they're able to trust what is being offered to them. So those are a couple of things, but we see everything from, people are dangerous, or that they are all using drugs and addicted and have, those type of things. But I think that's why I think it's so important that we put people in proximity to people, and I think Nightlight is really good at being able to do that, because as we're in proximity to each other, then we're able to really humanize the things that people are dealing with and the struggles that they're dealing with in a better way.
And then also, what about the kind of the NIMBYism mindset? What are your thoughts on that kind of mindset and that kind of stigma that people have?
Yeah, that's a great question. So NIMBY is so hard. So not in my backyard is what that stands for. And I think it's a real, it really stops progress from moving forward and I think a lot of it probably stems from fear of not knowing and not being in proximity to people, or maybe some of your own experiences that are coming through. A lot of the times we see people when they're coming up with a not my backyard mentality, where they're where they're addressing things, and it's usually the same argument. It doesn't matter what state you're in, it doesn't matter what city you're in. The people that are arguing against progress in certain locations. So like if you're gonna put in a village community like we're doing, we experience NIMBY, or whether you're doing an outreach and a neighbor doesn't want that outreach too close to their house and you're gonna experience NIMBY. But it's always the same arguments, like you're gonna decrease my property value, you're going to bring in crime and drugs and all of these things. And really when you look at those statistics across these communities that put those in place, that's not true data. It's really just a stigma that people are carrying, as well as a fear that they're putting out there as something they're afraid that's going to happen that really doesn't have any data to back it. And it does slow progress from being able to create spaces where people can exist and can get the resources they need to really move up and do what they need to really live a healthy and good life.
For this project, I thought that most of them, or all of them, their cause of homelessness was either laziness, not wanting to work, or putting too much money into drug addiction and stuff. But it's not just that. That's a minority, actually. There are like a lot of things that could cause it. Mostly like lack of affordable housing. Yeah. And life happens, lightning can strike, or a lot of things.
I used to think that most people experiencing homelessness were due to substance abuse, whether that be alcohol or many types of drugs, and now I'm aware that it's actually less than 25% of people that actually are that are actually experiencing homelessness because of substance abuse.
They were extremely grateful. They were always like, thank you for doing this. They often wanted to talk with me because they often had no one to do so, and it was very wholesome, and it was very impactful, and it helped me understand that it's not always their fault.
Yeah, I think it's really like impacted my view on service and things like that. I remember being a kid, and when it first started, I mean, I was there throughout all of that. My older brother, I think it was his 8th birthday, where he talked about how he wanted to not have a party or not get any presents, and he just wanted to go and make little bags and hand things out to people who were experiencing homelessness, which was really awesome, and I got to be there for that. So that was really cool. But going on, like throughout my childhood, I remember when it was first starting up, we would go out and like clean up the bridge in the area where it was happening and everything like that. And so that was like, I don't know, that's just like a key memory in my mind, just like getting all that started. But like since then, I went under the bridge a lot as a kid, and it was really exciting and really cool. And it kind of changed my view on service and like the things that I'm given in my life.
So City Lights Village is something that we've been working on since probably about 2018 is when we first started looking into housing and things like that, when City Lights really kind of moved in that direction. Prior to that, we were doing a lot of stuff with just on the ground, immediate resource type things, and so the village is kind of more of a solution for us. We were seeing people we were just seeing so many gaps in housing. So maybe somebody was waiting on a list for years and years and years, and then they would get into housing, and then 6 months later they were back on the streets. And so we were like, why? What's causing that? Or they would get into housing and they would move into an empty apartment, and whoever was working to house them didn't make sure that they had a bed or transportation or pots and pans to cook in and things like that. And so then they were really not being set up for success. They're still in that survival mode, even with a roof over their head. And so for us, that was like, okay, this is a gap. Let's look around the US and see who's doing what, and ways to kind of step in and fill that gap. And so we found Community First Village in Austin, Texas. That's where we went. And that was really the beginning of that journey of what housing is going to look like for us. So we were donated land in 2021 and are in the process right now of building out our village community. So it'll be 75 homes. It's permanent supportive housing for people coming out of chronic homelessness. So they've been on the streets at least a year and have at least one disability. So when we're thinking about that in Tulsa, we're thinking about our very most vulnerable neighbors having a place to come, and they can live out their entire life there with all of those support services around them. I think the thing that I would say is that, and I've said it already, is like proximity matters, and we are all needed. This is a community issue that requires a community response, and so even if you're afraid, even if you don't know what to do, even if you don't think that you can make a difference, you can. And it doesn't matter your age. It started with our 8-year-old little boy who wanted to take people out for his birthday. But we all have the ability to impact homelessness in our community in either a good way or a bad way. And so I just encourage people to get in proximity to it so that they understand it better, so that they can be part of the solution.